This is an open letter to Mr. Tucker Carlson. I enjoy your videos on Twitter X, or X Twitter. So thank you very much for your work. However, I had a few things to say about your recent interview on X with regards to the character assassination of Obama, Barack Obama. Here's the thing, sir. About the gentleman. First of all, I should say that years ago, as a refugee in Europe, I was housed with some African migrants in Europe, illegal migrants who were coming over there to seek refuge because Pinkskins had bombed their country and their village or whatever and invaded them from Europe and North America, and over recently for different reasons, and as usual they were there seeking asylum, mostly from Pinkskins and Pinkskin weapons which had destroyed their villages in Africa and Middle East. Anyway, that's beside the point. I came to notice that some of these Africans had arrived in Europe with their brother's passport or their cousin's passport. Apparently what they do is simple. One, let's say Nigerian, let's say Algerian, let's say Somalian, goes to Europe. One brother goes to Europe and gets asylum, let's say in Sweden, let's say in France. And once they get asylum and after so many years they get citizenship, eventually they get a French passport or they get Swedish passport. What they do is then they send this passport by mail or by carrier, somebody who's traveling back, or they take it back themselves and then they say they have lost it. They give this passport, somehow this passport reaches their brother or their cousin back home in the African country, wherever they're from. And their brother or their cousin or their friend uses the same passport with the same photo, with the same identity, everything else the same as the owner of the passport. It's just somebody else is using it. They use that passport to go to the destination country and seek asylum, like their brother or their cousin, who has already become a citizen of Europe. And how is that possible? That is possible because human beings, we have difficulty distinguishing one dark-skinned guy from another dark-skinned guy, one black-skinned guy from another black-skinned guy. Not only we have trouble distinguishing, but the AI currently at this level that the AI has, the level of technology behind current AI it has difficulty distinguishing one black-skinned individual from another black-skinned individual, for the simple fact that we and the AI, everybody, all of us that use vision, we use patterns of light and shadow to distinguish one object from another, one person from another. But the problem is that with the darker skin, we have difficulty distinguishing shadows from the actual color of the skin, complexion of the skin, with the difficulty distinguishing shadow from the actual color of the skin. So therefore we all make a mistake. Therefore we all can't distinguish one black skin from another. That's the same reason we use camouflage. They use dark paint over their face and body for camouflage, because again, to hide the patterns of light and shadow. What is my point? My point is your interviewee, his main thing, his main point of interview was, one, he is sure he met Barack Obama, and he's sure he remembers his face. We can't, as I said, we human beings, even the AI can't distinguish one face from another right on the spot from the picture. Now you're telling me the guy had a two half an hour or two couple of hour affairs with a guy, with a black guy 20 years ago, but he happens to remember his face. I'm sure your interviewee had sex with some black guy in Chicago, but I'm kind of doubt, as a white man, he can remember the facial features of the black guy he had sex with or he performed oral sex on. That's kind of doubtful. Even the AI can't distinguish black people from each other. I'm sure, a drug using, half drunk, half drugged white guy in dark in a limousine, 20 years ago, having sex with a black man, and then 20 years later seeing some black man on TV and screaming that, yeah, that's him, I had sex with him. Oh, fuck you. That's bullshit. And the second, red flag is the fact that I don't know any prostitutes who work with their real name. Here's the thing, your objective of this interview or character assassination was that Obama supposedly was a male prostitute 20-30 years ago in Chicago, blah blah blah. He lets other people suck his dick. Well, other males suck his dick. If that is possible, no prostitute that would be considered a male prostitute. No escort or prostitute, male or female, ever works with their real name. Because they're not crazy. So your interviewee comes and says, yes, he was introduced to me not even as Barry Obama, but Barack Obama. Who the fuck does that? Not even porn stars don't use their real name. Porn stars who want to be famous. Prostitutes don't want to be famous. So I'm sure they don't want to use their real name. Even the porn stars who want to be famous don't use their real name. Because of the hang-ups that we have in the society about sex and sexual acts. So nobody in those businesses wants to use their real name ever, logically. And so there are two red flags with your interviewee, with your witness, with your interviewee. One, that the male prostitute or the male escort that he sucked off was introduced to him with his real name, and two, that he, in the dark of the night, in limousine and inside the bar, in the dark and shadow inside the bar and inside the limousine, and the next day in his room, from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, he remembers that face and who it was, and once he sees that face on TV, and that face that is not a white person or any other complexion, that person is a black skin. Even the AI has even immigration officers have difficulty distinguishing one black person from another black person. As they're in Europe, they're taking advantage of that, and Africans are using each other's passport to pass through the immigration system in Europe, and I'm sure in America. So this is it. There is you have a very thin argument that first he introduced himself with his with his given name, and then this guy after 20 years remembers a black guy's face, which AI has a difficulty doing. Okay, that's that. that that theory aside, there is a lot of holes in it, red flags. The other problem, salute. The other problem with your argument, let's assume that it was Barack Obama. Let's assume that that escort was Barack Obama. Yeah, and he did just that. He smoked crack and he smoked cocaine and he let the white guy blow his dick. Okay, let's assume that's correct. Let's assume your witness is perfectly correct. What of it? What of it? What is democracy? You like to brag about democracy, that the people get a true representation in a democracy. Nobody says in democracy the best of us will become leader. Nobody says that. Everybody says in a democracy, everyday people relate to the top guy, to the guy they pick as representative, and that guy it is a true representative of people because the people actually understand him. He's one of them. He's one of the people. That's basically the selling point of democracy, that we choose one of us who want exactly like us. Well, George W. Bush got elected because average Joe would consider having beer with him. That's the whole spiel of George W. Bush, that he was relatable because he stumbled and he fucked up and he stumbled through a fucking sentence. He couldn't put a fucking sentence together. And that was his whole relating part. And he fucked up his presidency and the rest of the fucking planet and killed millions of people in the process. But the point is this is your whole selling point, that we pick in a democracy is a good system because we pick a true representative of people. We don't pick holy people. We don't pick holier than thou. We pick the true man of the people, That's the whole selling point of democracy. So if the people are not well educated, they don't relate to Al Gore or John Kerry. They relate to Bush and Trump. So what's the problem? You see, here's the thing, folks. Obama was a man of the people. The people use a lot of drugs and have, are very liberal in their sexual activity. So was Obama. He used drugs and he was very liberal in their sexual activity. So what's the problem? It's democracy, baby. It's your system. The one that you keep bragging about, the one that you keep exporting it to every fucking corner of the planet. He's a man of the people. The people use a lot of drugs. And and if you doubt any of that, please look it up, research it. They have tested $100 bills from all across the United States. They have tested $100 bills for cocaine residue. They have tested $100 bills for cocaine residue from all across the United States. They roll $100 bills, as I don't have to explain to you. I explain it for people of the third world countries who don't know what's going on. They roll up $100 bills and they use them as a straw to snort cocaine. Therefore, afterwards, there is always some residue left on the fucking dollar bill. And then this dollar bill, those even small residue sticks on the bill, and when the bill passes hand, the small residue remains on the $100 bills, on high denomination bills. Because people who use cocaine have access to high denomination bills, have to have access to high denomination bills. My point is this: after testing for residue of cocaine of all the $100 bills across the United States, they have found that the $100 bills in Washington D.C. area has the highest level of cocaine residue on them. Highest level in Washington D.C. What does that tell you? That means you have a very liberal attitude towards use of chemicals in your daily life. Enhancing chemicals, drugs. And the highest level of drug use apparently is taking place in Washington D.C., your capital. So what of it? He used drugs, and use of drugs, you in your society you have a very liberal views with regards to drug use, because your capital has the highest volume of drug use. So what's the problem? Again, if you have any doubt, I mean, if you further investigate, you read that CIA used to distribute crack cocaine itself in across the country, and use some of those funds to overthrow some governments here and there. And then you read even the Clintons have had some private planes landing in Little Rock, Arkansas, related to transportation of these chemicals. And there is some rumors. And then, so what of it? If it's the drug use, he's a true representative of the public, and the public have very liberal views towards drugs, and many use it. So what's the problem? He's a true representative of the people who use a lot of drugs. So he uses drugs. So what's the problem? If it's the sexual part is your problem, I'm sorry to say this. Your society has very liberal views towards sex. Do I have to say this about even the conservative side? They have, orgies, and that poor young Republican representative who was invited to one of these orgies, and he balked, and he came screaming out that these motherfuckers are holding orgies in Washington D.C. And right off the bat, the next election, they kicked him out. They didn't fund his campaign, so he was dropped. He didn't get elected because he ratted on the system that, hey, in Washington D.C., the Democrats hold their own sex orgies, and the Republicans hold their own sex orgies. So your views about sex is also liberal, very liberal. Do I have to remind you that the Liberty University, the guy president of Liberty University, was caught jerking off for years? He was jerking off while watching his wife have intercourse with a bisexual Cuban pool boy. Whatever his name was, Jerry something or whatever or other. President of Liberty University, one of those Christian, like Bill Maher says, Christian universities. The president was happy watching his wife having sex with a bisexual Cuban pool boy for years, until it came out, and whatever. And that's your most conservative and most religious and most Christian organization that you have. So in general, I'm not saying this is bad or good. It's not up to me to judge. But the point is this: your character assassination of Obama doesn't work, because one, it probably wasn't him, because nobody in the business of escort business uses the real name. One. Two, even the AI and immigration officers have problem distinguishing one black face from another. On the other hand, even if it was Barack Obama who was using drugs and having liberal sex, isn't that what's happening in the society in general around you, Mr. Tucker Carlson? That's what's happening in general. The United States has got very, especially people with money. Jeffrey Epstein and all his political connection. 14 phone number for Trump. Mr. Bill Clinton going to his island and African trips and his home in New York and here and there with 14, 15, 16-year-old girls. And nobody's questioning him. All of this means your, your your holdups about sexuality, it's all with regards to the common folks. So your society is basically understood that the powerful and the wealthy can live be have not can have very liberal views towards sex and drugs. You're rich and wealthy and powerful. Have and do participate in drug related activities and very liberal sexual related activities, and there's no problem with it. All of this evidence point to that. And in general, your public also has very liberal views towards sex and drugs. And he's from Chicago, and he's representative. He was a representative of those people, and those people have a lot of drugs and sex, liberal sex, involved with their life in Chicago. So why is that a problem? He's a democracy, and he's a true representative of people, the people who have very liberal views regarding both of these issues. Here's the thing, folks. I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but if you live in China and you say, one such a Chinese leader did this or that, then you can say, okay, yeah, that's a problem. They don't have liberal views towards drugs and this and that, and they believe their leaders should be better than the people. So yeah, if the leader is not better than the people, then there is a problem. But in your democracy, you're not even saying that. You don't say the leader should be better than the people. You say leader should be exactly like the people, a true representative of the people. Well, then the leaders are using drugs and having sex with strangers. So what's the problem with that? In my personal view, I think the leader should be somebody who I, as a common man, cannot relate to. You see what I'm saying? I do think the leader should be holier than thou. Should be a very intellectual, honest person who I cannot relate to, who a common man cannot relate to, because the common man is not intellectual, or honest. The common man is not intellectual or honest. So therefore, a leader that I think should be a good leader should be unrelatable to the common man. But this is not your view. Your view says, democracy in a system in which the common man votes, and in order for a leader to be chosen as a leader, the common man has to be able to relate to this person. Well, the common man relates to somebody like himself, unintellectual, stupid, and not honest. You made your bed, now you have to sleep in it. People don't vote for intellectuals and honest intellectuals because people can't relate to honest intellectuals. They just can't. They don't understand them. they don't understand that how can a person not only think of himself. They don't understand that. This is how the common man is. The common man only thinks of himself or herself. And if they see somebody who doesn't, think of only himself or herself, they can't relate to that. They don't understand. What do you mean? Therefore, if they can't relate, they don't vote. They think the person is fake because it's not just like them. If it's not just like them, if it's not what they expect, they think it's fake. Therefore, they don't vote. Therefore that's why John Kerry didn't get elected. That's why Al Gore didn't get elected. Because they were honest intellectuals, more or less, as intellectual as one can be in politics. I'm sorry, but yeah, democracy sounds good. It's just in practice, like communism, in practice, it has a lot of issues. And the funny thing is, you keep going around the world and stomping on smaller countries, on lesser countries, based, and one of the things that you're saying is like, no, no, we're coming over there to help you, bring you democracy. It's just like it has worked for us so well. We're coming over there to bring you ours. It's great.